go on their website, and that's www.constitutionparty.com, constitutionparty.com, and that has links to all the state websites and so on, and just all the information you could possibly need would be on there. You could also call, for those who may not have web access, could call our 800 number, and that's 1-800, that's number 2, then VETO IRS. 1-800, number 2, that's VETO IRS. And for those in North Carolina, I would encourage you to call our state chairman there, Chris Campbell. And his telephone number is 919, area code, 919-557-3065. And that would be the best way to get involved directly in the North Carolina ballot access effort by contacting Mr. Campbell. And again, by getting on our website or calling a number, we have to send packets of information out or tell you how to get involved elsewhere.
Well, I want to thank you again for joining us. You're a real patriot. I wish you the very best. Stay in contact with us and let us know what's going on, and we will have you back on again soon.
Okay, thank you much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Call in 704-873-1400. We're going to go to phone calls when we come back after the break. All right, you're back on the Real News. We're ready for some phone calls. Phone call 704-873-1400. We want to hear from the public. I think that was very informative. We are going to have perhaps a fourth candidate if North Carolina will let us have our rights to have a vote for someone different. That would be great. So call in. We want to talk to you. Next, on Tax Day, April 15th, the Real News is going to be going to Washington. There's a protest there on the Capitol lawn. We're going to be covering that, so we will be in Washington on the 15th of April. The next story I want to do is one that has fell out of the memory hole. A lot of people have forgot about, but it came back up in the news last week. And Washington, D.C., the FBI has narrowed its focus to about 4 suspects in the 6.5-year investigation of the deadly anthrax attacks of 2001. And at least 3 of those suspects are linked to the Army's bioweapons research facility at Fort Detrick, Maryland. Fox News has learned. The anthrax attacks began shortly after September 11, 2001. Terror attacks further alarming a nation already reeling from the deaths of 3,000 Americans. 5 people were killed and more than a dozen others were infected by the deadly spores in the fall of 2001. A leading theory is that the anthrax was stolen from Fort Detrick and then sealed inside letters. A law enforcement said the FBI is essentially engaged in a process of elimination. Fort Detrick is run by the United States Army. It's the most secure biological warfare research center in the United States. In December 2001, an Army commander tried to dispel the possibility of a connection to Fort Detrick by taking the media on a rare tour of the base, and the commander said the Army used only liquid anthrax, not a powder, for any of its experiments. But an email obtained by Fox News, scientists at Fort Detrick openly discussed how the anthrax powder they were asked to analyze after the attacks was nearly identical to that made by one of their colleagues. Remember at first when this happened, how the news said it was Osama bin Laden. Then they said maybe it was Saddam Hussein. Now the truth is coming out. It was from an American military base and American military grade. What I wonder is, this killed 5 people and it comes shortly after the 9/11 attacks. The media has been totally silent on the investigation, and so has the government. Very coincidental, anthrax was stolen from a U.S. government lab with extremely tight security and just so happened released after 9/11, and over 6 years later, no arrest. Makes me wonder what is really going on here. This may well be this week's food for thought. Now, I don't know if anyone's been keeping up with this story, but it's a real travesty. If you remember the border guards that were put in prison a couple of years ago, and I want to address that because of what happened this week in the story. President George W. Bush pardoned 16 criminals, including 5 drug dealers at Christmas time. But so far he has refused to pardon the 2 U.S. Border Patrol agents who were trying to defend America against drug smugglers. It makes us wonder what side the self-proclaimed compassionate president is on. Border Patrol agents Ramos and Capian regarding the Mexican border near El Paso on February 17, 2005, when they intercepted a van carrying 743 pounds of marijuana. For what happened next, they were convicted and sentenced under a statute that was designed to impose heavy punishment on criminal drug smugglers caught in the commission of a crime. The two agents are scheduled to start 11 and 12-year-old prison terms, respectively, January 17th of this year, for the crime of putting one bullet in the buttocks of an admitted drug smuggler and failing to report the discharge of their firearm. The non-fatal bullet didn't stop the smuggler from running to escape in a van waiting for him on the Mexican side of the border. Representative Dana Ronbacher called the two agents heroes. Because of their actions, more than $1 million of illegal drugs were stopped from being sold to our children. Bringing felony charges against them is a travesty of justice beyond description. The White House and the U.S. Department of Justice are stonewalling requests for a presidential pardon from 55 members of Congress and U.S. citizens who have sent at least 160,000 petitions and 15,000 faxes. When the Bush administration designs to respond at all, the official line is that the Border Patrol agents got a fair trial. But that's not true. They didn't get a fair trial. They were convicted because the Justice Department sent investigators into Mexico, tracked down the drug smuggler, and gave him immunity from all prosecution for the drug smuggling crimes if he would come back and testify against Ramos and Campion. It was massively unfair to give immunity to an illegal alien narcotics trafficker while destroying the lives and families of two Border Patrol agents who risked their lives to stop him. Ramos and Campion were convicted mainly on the testimony of the immunity-sheltered drug smuggler, whose integrity should have been called into question, but Ramos and Campion were forbidden to do that at the trial. The prosecutor even tried to get Ramos and Campion convicted of attempted murder. The jury acquitted them of the outlandish charge, but the government still asked for a sentence of 20 years for the other counts which they were convicted. How did the prosecution go from an administrative violation for failing to report a firearm discharge with the penalty of perhaps a 5-day suspension to prosecution for intent to commit murder? After the trial, two jurors gave sworn statements that they had been pressured to render a guilty verdict and did not understand that a hung jury was even possible. A major argument used by the prosecution during the trial was that our government has a policy forbidding agents from chasing suspected drug smugglers without first getting permission from supervisors. That sounds like a no-arrest policy to me. By the time agents get permission, the smuggler can be out of sight and safely back over the border. There are a couple of factual discrepancies between the smuggler's story and the agent's testimony. But the government chose to believe that immunity motivated repeat drug smuggler rather than the Border Patrol agent with clean records. Ramos was nominated for Border Patrol Agent of the Year in 2005, and Campion served honorably in the U.S. Navy before joining the Border Patrol. The Bush administration tidied up Andretti's wounds at a U.S. hospital at our expense and opened the way for him to sue the U.S. government for $5 million for violating his civil rights, which he is now doing. The case exposes the misplaced priorities of the Bush administration. The case also reminds us that our Border Patrol agents are in daily danger from hardened criminals. It's unbelievable. It's a complete travesty of justice. I can't believe we have any border guards after this. So we give immunity to illegal alien drug smugglers and imprison our own border guards. And what got me on this story is that one of the imprisoned guards, Ramos, was severely beaten this week in prison. This story is a complete utter shame on our government from top to bottom and on us as a people for allowing it to happen.